Hello, hello, lovely Year 6 designers. We're carrying on with our project where we're designing bags for Manchester Museum for an imaginary exhibition where it's bringing together all the beautiful cultural traditions across Africa, including these Zulu beads, including ancient Egyptian motifs. We were also looking at the Adinkra designs, beautiful designs there, and the Kente patterns. And then we also looked at the Adinkra symbols, which is what we used for when we were making our stencils. And we're going to be working with our stencils today, so I hope you kept them safe. We're going to be decorating the cloth to make our bags today. That's the object of the exercise. So for that, we need our stencil that we cut out last half term and had our little practice on paper. But now we're going on to cloth. So everyone's going to need a piece of this cotton fabric. You're going to need masking tape, possibly scissors, a stippling brush. Do you remember the stippling brush is flat? And then you're going to need a plate with some colour fabric paints on. And I've got the primary colours and white and black. So we're ready to go. The first thing to do is just to have a look at our piece of cloth. If you notice, I've cut the end here into a zigzag. I've cut them with something called pinking shears. This is so we don't have to make a seam. This is at the top of the bag. And for those of you that find sewing difficult, I've cut it like this. If you can, you will put a seam on. But if that's too tricky and you haven't got time, it's not going to fray because we've used these pinking scissors. So there we go, we've got our bag. Now, some of you are going to want a square like this. Some of you designed a rectangle for your bag. If you've made a rectangle, you might want to cut a little bit off of the edge and you just do a few snips with your fabric scissors and then you rip hard to get a nice straight edge. There we go. And so then that means that when you fold your fabric, you've got a rectangle rather than a square. So it's up to you, whatever your design was, whether you want it to be more square or more of a rectangle. I'm going for this piece of fabric here because I want more of a square shaped bag. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stick it down to our table. So we're going to use masking tape, just stick the edge. Now, can you see how I've caught the edge of the fabric and I've also got the table there? This is going to protect the table from paint, but also keep your fabric nice and flat for when you are doing your stencils. And it's really good if you can get a friend to help you pull your fabric nice and tight at this stage. I was on my own, so I didn't have a friend to do that, but you will. So lay out your piece of cloth, getting it nice and smooth and flat, sticking it all the way around, all four sides with the masking tape. And we're actually ready to start decorating this piece of fabric now. Just make sure it's all safely stuck down and we're ready to go. So we've got our stencil. You've got your designs. You're going to decide how you want your cloth to look. So on some of you, your designs might be going side to side, and in that way you'll want to have some of your symbols one way and some the other because it's going to fold up in a different direction. Or you might want to just have the entire piece of fabric decorated, not worrying about what's the top or the bottom. So it's up to you and it's up to your designs. I'm going to do rows and I think I'm going to have mine in opposite directions. Now what you do is you get some of this fabric paint. This is fabric paint, which is different from normal paint. It won't come off the cloth, so don't get it on your clothes. But please be sparing with this because it's very expensive. You only need a little bit. Now I want orange, so I'm mixing my two primary colours of yellow and red together. When you mix colours, you always start with the lightest colour first. So I started with yellow and put a tiny bit of red there and I mixed it. And I don't want a lovely solid colour. I want that kind of a mixture of a bit of a yellow and a bit of red and a bit of orange. If you wanted to have like one strong colour of orange, then you just really rub your brush together with the paint and blend those properly. But I don't want it fully blended for mine. I'm also going to want a tiny bit of black to get a bit of sort of shade and shadow on there. Look how little I'm using though, tiny bit. You can always put more on if you need it, but otherwise you'll waste it if you put loads on and it will start getting messy. So I'm ready to start with my stencils. So I'm laying my stencils on in this direction. I get some of the paint on my stippling brush, not too much. I lay it down, got it at the edge there, and I begin stippling. Remember how we did this on paper last half term when we had a practice? and I'm getting that my nice colours in there. Now, I don't want it to look like it's come out of a factory. I want it to look handmade. I want people to know that I've done this myself. So I'm not filling it in completely. I'm just getting a really nice texture there. Now, can you see I'm laying my stencil down next to my first piece, my first motif, and now I'm just laying it on and doing the next one. And I'm trying not to touch the paint of the finished pattern there because I don't want to get it all smudged. So I'm laying my stencil next to the second one, and I'm just slowly building this up now. And so I've got my fabric looking really well decorated. I'm just going to speed this up, as I'm sure you can understand how we do this now. I flipped over my stencils for the bottom and added those on. And as you can see, there's a nice variety in those colours. Now, let's just look at this, how I'm doing this, because I'm going over the edge. So you don't need to stencil onto the table, you just stop painting. Now, I've got my cloth finished here. You could add more, you could layer up those colours. I'm going to just show you another simple design. I wiped off my stencil with a baby wipe, and I'm using the black, which is very much traditional with the Adinkra symbols. And I wanted just a very plain one where I'm going to use lots of colour with the beading and things like that. So black looks very effective as well as colour. Enjoy making your fabric. If you can, leave this to dry overnight attached to your table with the masking tape so it dries nice and smooth, and it will be easy for us to add our further decoration in our next lesson. Bye for now, Year 6.